get started. So I'm Thomas Williams. I'm the Eastern Territory Manager for EasyRx. I recognize a lot of the names that have joined today, so we appreciate everybody who's joined the call and the webinar. We also have Marcus O'Leary, who is our Western Territory Manager, joining the webinar today. Marcus has hosted the last couple of webinars for us, so you may have met Marcus before. Post-webinar today, if anybody has questions, I know we have several current customers who might be curious about how aligner tracking can benefit. Please feel free to reach out to us, post-webinar. For those of you who are new to EasyRx, we're always happy to schedule kind of a one-on-one demo with you as well. Feel free to lob a chat message through. Marcus is going to be moderating the chat room throughout the webinar. So if you have questions as we go along, please let us know. Anything else that you can think of or want to save toward the end, we're going to open it up toward the end of the webinar, and we'll be kind of letting everybody ask questions at that point as well. So I know a few of y'all are new to the software, so before I get into aligner tracking, that's really going to be our focus today. I do want to provide maybe 2 or 3 minute overview on what we do in general broad strokes as a company. EasyRx is universal lab prescription digital workflow and 3D software for orthodontic dental practices in the labs you work with. And again, our focus today's topic is really going to be on aligner tracking and the blueprint to a better aligner workflow for your practice. And this is just a quick screenshot of our aligner tracking system. We're going to dive into this today. But when you look at EasyRx as a whole software, the idea was to give practices a powerful tool to not only better communicate with the labs you work with, maybe commercial labs, in-house labs, but really give organization to everything you do, whether it's an aligner prescription or an appliance prescription. Maybe it's just that we want to be able to upload STL files into our cloud. We looked at the general workflow of most practices, and it's frankly all over the place. Maybe you have a notebook that you keep track of cases in, or an Excel spreadsheet, or we're putting appointments or delivery information into our practice management software. But really nothing talks, none of the software or technology we have communicates. And the idea was to really give practices one platform where we work with your practice management software, we work with your commercial labs, your digital design software, your in-house lab, and bring all that into one platform. And now that 3D printing has gotten a lot more popular with practices and labs, people are now trying to kind of master the in-house aligner workflow. That's what we're going to be focused on today. The other core features with EasyRx are our universal lab prescription form, our digital workflow management dashboard. So again, we can take a look at these a little closer in a one-on-one demo if you'd like to at some point. We also have a really easy and powerful tool called EasyRx 3D that I think many of y'all are using that have joined, but kind of figuring out how to use 3D software efficiently is not always an easy task. So we developed software to help you and your staff take an open shell STL to a printable model, in minutes. And we've actually added a digital bracket removal software, and we have an AI version that's really powerful. So again, if y'all would like to take a deeper dive into those, we can after the webinar. One of the things that we love is we have great integration partners, whether it's with practice management software. You can see the partners we currently have on the screen here. And we also work with intraoral scanner companies. So we're an open platform. And with 3D printing, we integrate with most of the major companies out there. There are new printers popping on the market all the time. If you don't see your printer listed here, it's not that we can't work directly with that printer. It's just that we don't have a direct integration. So you can totally use EasyRx and be able to get the STLs to your printer nonetheless. On the lab side, we work with any commercial lab really, and we're happy to say that we have 450 plus commercial labs that we currently work with. If you get into using EasyRx and you find that we maybe don't have one of the labs that's in your network, we can hook them up at no cost. So we want you to be able to communicate with any lab. And then kind of just touching on this, we were really excited. Last year we were awarded the Ortho Innovator Award from the AAO. EasyRx, we want to become the standard of care for orthodontic practices. And so this was, we felt like a great honor and so an achievement. So just touching on that. And now let's get into the software. So on my screen here, you're seeing our management dashboard, and we're cloud software. So this is something you can run on any computer throughout the practice. You can log into EasyRx from your home computer if you want to. And it brings you to this dashboard. And ultimately, this is where you're going to be able to manage and see every case that's in motion for the practice. And there are some drill down options here where if you wanted to see cases maybe that are saved, maybe there's a financial hold or a case we want to review before it's actually submitted to the lab, this is where those cases will hang out until they're actually submitted. We have a needs review button that we've recently added. So maybe you have a new team member and you want to review a case before it's submitted. You can set it up to where it will go into this queue before it's actually submitted. General workflow is that once a case is submitted, the lab would check the case in. And this could be your in-house lab or a commercial lab that you work with. So you have full oversight on your cases at any given time. You can drill down by specific office. So if you have multiple locations, multiple doctors, you have drill down options available to you. And the nice thing is once a case is completed and shipped back to you, you can see the cases in real time and know, hey, we've got a case due in a few days, but we want to track it. You can actually track that prescription as it's inbound. The other thing that most practices like to do is track what needs to be delivered to the patient. And sometimes these get lost in translation, specifically when we have multiple labs, multiple locations. So you can really help track those with this received queue on what needs to be delivered. Now, this all led to us creating an aligner tracking system, and it's a separate dashboard from the main dashboard. And as more of our doctors started doing in-house aligners, we started getting questions about, can we track those in EasyRx? And so we eventually developed a software to really help better manage not only the cases you're doing with commercial and in-house, but specific to aligners. And so there's an aligner tracking dashboard, and this is part of our premium account, which includes the in-house lab. So it's all bundled into that account type. With the aligner tracking dashboard, just like the other dashboard, you're able to drill down by notification types, date ranges, status on a specific prescription, office, doctor. So there are some nice drill down options on this dashboard. But what we heard the most was we need to know, what needs to be printed. So a lot of times if you send off, say you're working with ULab and they send you, you do a setup and you have 20 upper, 20 lower, but you only want to print 5 and you only want to deliver 5 because maybe, you don't want to waste resin on printing all 20 or 40 models. There wasn't a really good way to keep track of that. And that's what this dashboard will do for you. So you'll be able to see batches, for example, on what needs to be printed and create those and track those in this dashboard. You'll also be able to create unique views. So if you wanted to see reminders on what needs to be printed this week, for example, coming up, or when we need to contact the patient for the next appointment, there are options to do those as well. So you can have unique views. So this will just give organization to your whole aligner workflow. I want to take you through creating a prescription, and we'll get back to the aligner dashboard, just kind of high level overview on that. But there's a couple of different ways that you create a case in EasyRx. If you don't have practice management integration, then you can create a prescription right from the dashboard. If you have Cloud9 or EagleSoft, we integrate with their software where we actually pull in a list of patients directly from the practice management software. You can go into creating a prescription from this list. Or if you have an iTero scanner, and you don't have practice management integration, our integration with iTero works in a way that we actually pull in the most recently scanned patient every few seconds. So when you scan a patient, you'll see that patient listed here, and you can go directly from creating the prescription here. I'm going to show you our integration with Dolphin today, and many of our practice management integration partners have identical integrations. So if you have TOPS, Ortho2, the integration is going to look identical to what I show you today, in the sense that when you're in the treatment card for the patient, let's say you're at chair and Eliza's at chair side, and you're ready to create a prescription, there's going to be a button built in for EasyRx. When you click that, it creates a patient record in our software for that patient. And this is where we're going to store prescription history, any STL files or any file types that you've attached. So if you had to do a remake or you wanted to quickly check on status of a case without having to log into EasyRx directly, you have a quick link to this. Now I'm going to create a prescription for the first time. So I click Create RX. And this is where, depending on the software that you use for your aligner workflow, we may integrate with them. ULab, we have a direct integration with. Orchestrate, we integrate with. SureSmile, Archform, some of the other 3Shape. We don't integrate directly with their software. So if you were working with them, you would actually want to use your in-house lab or a tracker lab, what we call a tracker lab, for that case. If you have ULab, you're going to want to just click on ULab as the lab. And what we do with ULab is we actually pull the files that you attach to the prescription from EasyRx into UConnect. So it's a huge time savings, and you'll be able to, kind of link the two together directly. For this, I'm going to actually select my in-house lab. And all we do is put in an estimated date for delivery or date we need it back. We have our doctor, our office location. We can also keep track of who took the scan and submits the case. I was on the phone with the practice yesterday, and they had a couple locations, and one of the things, they were doing all in-house work. It was really important to them to be able to know who was taking the scan and submitting the case, because the lab technician right now basically has to run to the front of the practice and find out who wrote the paper slip. So this is kind of neat. This gives some accountability and oversight on that side of the software. So from here, we're going to go to create our prescription. And for my in-house lab, I'm doing aligners, I'm doing all types of different appliances. So what I have is basically a template list that I've created for all the different appliances I do. If it's a simple Essex or a Holly retainer, you can click and that will create the prescription for you. I also have an aligner template set up. So what I'm going to do here is click on my aligner template, and this is going to do two things. It's going to trigger the aligner tracker in our software, but it's also going to give me the option to go in and go to my aligner prescription form. So if you wanted to go in and add patient images, for example, you could easily do that by clicking on, maybe you have certain patient images that you want to add. You can easily add those to our prescription form in the software. Or if you had x-rays that you wanted to add, you can upload those just as easily. And then we can add any notes. So maybe there's some notes that we want to add for the patient. We can add those into the software as well. And that's going to save all that to the prescription. So you have all that documented. You can add notes to the prescription. You can also upload scans. So if you're not using an iTero scanner, maybe you have a Medit or a Trios, it's very easy to add your STL files just by clicking on Files from Computer and then uploading your STL. If you have the iTero scanner, we have a seamless integration, again, where we pull in the patient that you most recently scanned. We'll do a quick verification to show that we're attaching the correct scan, and then we're just going to sign and submit this prescription. In most cases, you should be able to get through a prescription in EasyRx in a minute, 2 minutes, and have that case submitted to our lab. So at this point, we have a submitted case in the main dashboard under all submitted tab. And you can notice that I actually have a blue tag, what we call tags, associated with this case. And this is just letting me know that the, and a tag is basically a color-coded, customized tag that you can put on a prescription. So I have several different ones. A lot of practices like to use these because it's kind of an easy identifier on the dashboard. But on the aligner tracking dashboard, it's also an indicator that this needs an aligner treatment plan. So if I'm using ULab or Archform, Orchestrate, any of the softwares, ultimately, we're going to go into their software, we're going to do a setup, and that's going to, you know, come to this dashboard, and we're now going to say, let's say we have 20 upper and 20 lower for that patient, but we only want to print 5. By putting in the total, we're creating a batch to show that we want to print 5 on the upper, 5 on the lower. We also can help you track, you know, the number of models that are printed and what's delivered right here. So for whatever reason, you only ended up printing 4, you could always change these numbers at any time. In your account settings, you can set up the default number of days that you want the patient to wear the trays. So if 7 days is it, you can add that. This is something you can change also. But it pre-calculates the total number of days in the stage. And what we're doing is we're actually setting up reminders. So we have our delivery date, which is the date needed. And we're pushing out 35 days from that date is our finish date. So to help you or your lab technician know, hey, when do we need to create our next batch and print our next batch, we set up a reminder for 10 days in advance of their finish date. And we want to contact the patient maybe 5 days in advance of that or 10 days in advance of that. So we can set up a reminder to do that. So once we've saved this batch, it's going to go back into our dashboard. So we now see that we have a batch created, and we're waiting to ultimately print this batch. So once we go in and we print, we're going to mark it as printed, and then we can mark it as delivered. And that's going to all update on this dashboard. So in a month or so, when you come in and you go to remind to contact patient, for example, this week, I have several patients that I need to reach out to. So here's Cody Banks. I know that I need to reach out to him. We can go into our aligner tracking dashboard. And at this point, this is when you create a new batch. So you're basically drilling down from what we've already done. So we've had 10 when we started. We've already delivered 5. The patient is tracking well. So let's go ahead and print our next batch of 5. And once we've done that, it's going to push that right back into the dashboard where we can go ahead and show that it's printed. And ultimately, we're going to track that delivery all the way to patient delivery and close that case out in the software. One of the things that we'll do when we're helping you get set up, part of the training we do with EasyRx is it will help you get this dashboard kind of customized so that you will have different notifications, different alerts to help you track. Because the more you do, obviously, the more you'll have, the busier this dashboard will be, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, you know, the notifications, the reminders, and the views you create will be really key into making this work well for you. Now, kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on here before we open it up to questions. Once you have a case active in EasyRx, a lot of times folks will ask, well, how can we check on the status directly from the practice management software? For Eliza McIntosh, let's say your front desk person gets a call wanting to know if we can come in to pick up the aligners. There's a quick link directly to that patient record where they can go in and view the aligner tracker, for example, to see where we are in status-wise. Or if it's a prescription and we want to just check on the prescription, see if it's received back from the lab, for example, you can do that very quickly. So there are some quick links we'll show you. And at this point, let's open it up to any questions that anybody has.
So far, no questions through chat. If anybody does have questions, please feel free to post it in the chat window there.
I know this is a fairly quick webinar. A lot of times we cover all the aspects of EasyRx. And if you have questions on other things that we have in the software, I'm happy to address those. Just kind of wanted to keep this concise and kind of focused on the aligner tracking side of it. But if anybody has questions about other things, please feel free to ask about those. And while we're kind of waiting on any questions, a lot of times, if you're not a current customer, folks want to know, how do we get started with EasyRx? What are the costs associated with the software? It's a very, very easy software to get set up. It's cloud-based, so you create your account online. You can log in immediately. You can start setup immediately. We do provide 3 hours of training, specifically with our premium account. And we actually have some special pricing for our webinar. Typically, our premium account, which includes the in-house tracking, aligner tracking, 3D software, is $1,584 a year. We provide a 10% discount for your first 2 years, so it's only $1,425 per year, and that includes training and everything. If you were wanting to really just use our software to trim models, label models, but also wanted to be able to send out to commercial labs, we have a 3D standard account. It's $1,015 for the year, and we have a standard account for customers that are only looking for the software to track cases with commercial labs. And that's $734. Our bracket removal software, we have 2 versions of bracket removal. One is a manual version. It's $495 to set that up, where you actually go in and circle each bracket. And we also, we have a discounted per use fee after 3 months of $2.45 per patient. If you want to be hands-free and only do minor adjustments on a model, we have an AI version that removes the brackets without you really having to do a whole lot. Saves about 5-10 minutes per arch, and that's as low as $972 per year. It's tiered pricing, so the more you do, the individual cost goes down a little bit, but you can pay monthly or annually on any of these. And if you'd like to get started, we're going to follow up with an email with instructions to get started, and you can always feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we'd be happy to help. Marcus, did any questions come through? We're going to send out a recording of the webinar today. I know, Dr. Prada, you said you had to log out for a few minutes. So if you're back and didn't see the beginning, we can definitely send out a copy of this. And if you'd like kind of a more personalized, customized demonstration, we'll send you a link for that as well. And I guess if nobody has any questions, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, for those of you who have joined other webinars, we appreciate your continued interest and hope to speak with you soon. It looks like maybe we've got a question or two here. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Have a great day.